medical grade, I'm saying that in quotes, there's no regulated term for what that means. We generally take that to mean that it is sold at a dermatologist's office or a med spa. So there are certain brands that target only those places to be sold. So like Revision, Alastin, SkinCeuticals, SkinMedica, you're not going to find them at Target or at Sephora. They are sold at dermatologist's office and med spas. And that's a very specific marketing route, marketing tactic, if you will, that they choose. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. They've chosen to educate providers so that the providers can then pass that education along to the patient. Welcome to another episode of #Skinfix, the podcast. This week's episode is a solo Q&A. If you follow on Instagram, you know that I do these question and answer series every single week, but they have gotten so much more robust in the amount of questions that I've received. So I wanted to take some time to answer some of the most common here for you guys today. So we're starting off with questions about routines. So the first question is, what is a good starting regimen for somebody who is really a skincare novice, doesn't know where to start? This is where my simple 3-step skincare routine comes in. I do a lot of content around this like clinically efficacious, clinically proven 3-step routine. And I find that a lot of times people, if I stray from this, they get upset. Like, you promised simple, XYZ. But the point is that the 3 steps are all you really need to have great skin for decades down the line. Whether or not you want to expand on that and add on that, that's up to you. There are absolutely other products that are going to have benefit for your skin. But the point is that you really only, quote unquote, need these 3 to not only hydrate, moisturize, and protect your skin barrier, but also correct and protect from the premature signs of aging, which are fine lines and wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, sagging skin, all those things that we worry about when it comes to using our skincare. So don't come for me when you see recommendations that are 5 steps, or maybe I'm adding in an exfoliant once a week. That's not the point. The point is you only need these 3 steps, and then you can expand from there. So just to address some of the hate comments I've been getting if I stray from 3 steps in the morning and 3 steps at night. So what is this simple routine? So in the morning, what you can do is you can cleanse if you want, but honestly, most times I'll just splash my face with a little bit of water and go right into my vitamin C. If you're on the oily side, or you just wake up and you feel like you want to cleanse, you can absolutely cleanse. So in that case, you would do cleanse and then vitamin C. And then you really need some sort of a moisturizing agent and a sunscreen. Now, the good thing is that most of the sunscreen nowadays, especially for hot, humid summer months, are moisturizing enough that you don't always need a moisturizer. This is something that you have to play with. So you could get your routine essentially down to 2 steps if you just wanted to slap on some vitamin C and sunscreen in the morning. But you could also cleanse vitamin C and sunscreen, or alternatively, you could do vitamin C moisturizer sunscreen if you're really dry and your sunscreen doesn't cut it. But the most important things you're doing in your morning routine are vitamin C and sunscreen. Those 2 things work synergistically to help protect you from free radicals, from pollution, from UV exposure, and help to also correct a little bit on any of the underlying damage that you might have. So I, as you guys know, personally really love a tinted sunscreen because I have rosacea and melasma. Hyperpigmentation is light sensitive. So using a tinted sunscreen will give you that added visible light protection. So I do always recommend tinted sunscreen if you suffer with any of those light sensitive conditions. Then at night, your first step is going to be cleanse. Now, I would say for the majority of people who are using adequate sunscreen, you do need a double cleanse, but I kind of put that as just your cleansing step. Yeah, it might be 2 products, but it's still your cleansing step. So you're going to cleanse, and then you will do some sort of a retinoid and moisturizer. So the retinoid is going to be your heavy lifter at night, but of course you also need to cleanse and moisturize. Those are kind of like the foundations to a supportive routine, but the retinoid is your heavy lifter. So that brings you down to 3 steps at night: cleansing, retinoid, moisturizer. If you want to expand from there, first of all, if you want my simple, like a full simple skincare regimen, you can just go to skinfix.com/simple skincare, and I have a whole guide you can get with my recommendations. Because there's no one size fits all, it will say like best vitamin C's for every skin type and budget, and you can pick which one. Best sunscreens for every skin type and budget, you can pick which one. So that's skinfix.com/simple skincare. And then at skinfix.com/shop, I actually have a more comprehensive skincare guide. It's literally called the Comprehensive Skincare Guide. And that is for anybody who is already doing these 3 steps perfectly and is looking for ways that they can up-level their routine, this is going to be everything you need. And this is going to be closer to what I personally do because I've been doing this for so long. Now, don't get me wrong, there are definitely still days I still do a 3-step routine, definitely more than once a week, but the majority of the time my skincare routine is closer to 5 steps. If you follow me, like really anything more than 5 steps, I'm like, you're just increasing your chances of irritation and adverse events. So I really try to keep it to 3 to 5, but the comprehensive guide is great if you're someone who's not just starting and is looking for ways that they can incorporate clinically efficacious formulas into their routine. Okay, next question. What do I do with my LED current body timing and routine? So how do I use my current body LED mask? So the nice thing about the LED masks are they're all pre-timed treatments. So whatever the time the treatment is the time I do. I don't try to stack it. I don't try to do more time because the time is determined based on the number of bulbs, the irradiance, the wavelengths, all those other things. That's what determines the time that you use it, especially for a quality mask that's actually done the research. So unfortunately, I think there's a lot of knockoff masks out there that aren't the best quality, and that's when you really have to be careful, especially if you have things like rosacea and melasma, because these lower quality masks can often emit heat, which you absolutely do not want. And how do I do it in my routine? I cleanse at night. I double cleanse. Then I put on the mask for 10 minutes, and then I go on with the rest of my routine. So fairly simple, really easy. Is light therapy bad for melasma? So there is some evidence that blue light can be bad for melasma. So if you have melasma, you want to stick to the red light masks or just the red light settings in your mask. I also have a code for my current body mask. The current body mask that I use is just red light. They have other masks, but mine is just red. Red light is really good for reducing inflammation. It can help with increasing collagen production, reducing fine lines and wrinkles down the road. And my code for a discount for them is CBAmy. I'll leave it below. I think it gives you 15% off their mask. Again, you don't need this one. There are others on the market that are good and have data behind them. Just be wary of ones that seem inexpensive because unfortunately, I just don't think that the technology is really caught up where we can justify some of these cheaper masks. I think that they're cutting corners, and the companies that have the higher price tag are the ones that have really invested in the research and development and have the studies to back their device. How did I choose which hair helmet to get? So I personally have been using for the longest the Current Body hair mask, and the way I chose is because I already knew and trusted Current Body, and I knew that they had data behind their devices. So they were the first people I went to. I went and looked on the website to see what data they have on the hair helmet, and that's the one I went with. My code CBAmy does also work on the hair device. So this is a red light device for your scalp. So it increases blood flow to the scalp, which can help promote hair growth. I love using this and recommending it to my patients in conjunction with other hair care measures too. So if you're already doing like minoxidil or PRP, this can be or Nutrafol, this could be a great adjunct to your treatment, but it also can be used as a standalone if you're just looking to support hair growth too. I also just was sent the Eye Restore cap, so I'm going to look into that one a little bit further and start testing it. Tips on preventing breakouts in the summer. So we know that retinoids are the gold standard for treating acne, and they're not meant to be used as spot treatments. They're meant to be used all over the face to prevent new lesions from forming. So hands down, if you're not already using a retinoid, that is the first step. Yes, you can use your retinoid during the summer. It does not technically make you more photosensitive, although you still need to wear daily sunscreen. Anything that irritates the skin can make the skin a little bit more sensitive, but it's not a photosensitizing agent in the way that people believe or sometimes say. So I would start a retinoid. The best one, honestly, that you can get over the counter for acne is Differin. It's adapalene. It used to be available only by prescription, and then in recent years, it's become available over the counter. And that is a fantastic over-the-counter acne medication. I have a whole retinoid guide, skinenthusiast.com/retinoids. I would definitely recommend getting that one before you start a new retinoid. Skin is naive to retinoids because there's a lot happening there, and you have to do it very carefully in order to avoid irritation and issues with the retinization period. You still may purge, you still may get retinization. Both of those are normal, but there are ways that we can kind of curb the irritation and dryness and flaking that happens. So definitely grab that guide if you're just starting a retinoid. It will help you start it easily and in a way that might curb irritation for you. So hands down, if you're doing that, if you're not doing a retinoid, that's what you need to incorporate. However, if you're someone who's already on a retinoid regularly and then just for some reason in the summer you notice more breakouts, my favorite thing to add in at that point would be a toner pad. So that could be something like Jordan Harper's toning pads from Barefaced. I also love Dr. Dennis Gross peel pads, First Aid Beauty. I'll link everything below. But those are little pads that you wipe on your face that contain exfoliating acids. And sometimes I find that the addition of, usually I find that the addition of these pads can help to quench, especially like oily skin and little breakouts that you might be getting, especially during the summer months, which is often associated with like increased humidity, buildup on the skin, the sunscreen that you're wearing, makeup that you're wearing, kind of clogging the pores. So that's a really fantastic option. I actually just recently started reincorporating back into my routine the toning pads from Barefaced, and wow, it's made such a difference, such a difference in my routine. I don't know why I stopped using them. Okay, this question says, I'm using brand new products and they're giving me whiteheads on the lip line. So specifically, lip products often will contain some of the ingredients that we do know have a higher potential of clogging pores. Now, you guys know how I feel about the comedogenic topic. This is highly personal, highly personal. I don't believe in writing a product off because it has potential pore clogging ingredients. That's kind of like bogus science. However, if you're noticing that you're getting increased clogged pores or increased whiteheads on the lip line, it could be the ingredients in your lipstick. So there's a couple things you could do. You could use a toning pad, like I mentioned, just along the line. You have to be very careful because there's no oil glands on the lips themselves. So using an acid could be very, irritating. But if you're just noticing that you're getting them around the lip line, once you remove your makeup at night, you could try doing that. If that doesn't take care of it, just switch back to your old brands that weren't giving you an issue. Next question, why do estheticians push medical grade skincare? I think this is a very nuanced question because it's not that they're wrong by recommending medical grade skincare. First of all, medical grade, I'm saying that in quotes, there's no regulated term for what that means. We generally take that to mean that it is sold at a dermatologist's office or a med spa. So there are certain brands that target only those places to be sold. So like Revision, Alastin, SkinCeuticals, SkinMedica, you're not going to find them at Target or at Sephora. They are sold at dermatologist's office and med spas, and that's a very specific marketing tactic, if you will, that they choose. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. They've chosen to educate providers so that the providers can then pass that education along to the patient. Now, with anything, there's good and bad, right? There's evil and good in every industry. I love all those brands. I named it off the top of my head because I use every single one of them. I love them. They're highly efficacious. They have great research and development behind them. Some of the most fascinating ingredients and formulations that I've seen. And I think estheticians, quote unquote, push medical grade. And this isn't specific to estheticians, by the way. I know many people in my position who also, quote unquote, push medical grade. And I think it comes from this myth that is indoctrined into curriculum for estheticians and for anybody in the skincare space that medical grade is somehow better. And as I mentioned, those are fantastic products, but you can get incredible formulations at Target. La Roche-Posay, CeraVe, they've got the data behind them too. They're out there discovering new ingredients and new formulations all the time that are incredibly impactful in the skincare space. Naturium, incredible ingredients and formulations. There's so many. So how much your product costs and where it is purchased do not dictate how efficacious it is for your skin. I don't think we can necessarily fault estheticians for recommending only medical grade. Where I have a problem is where they tell you that you're wasting your money elsewhere just because they haven't done the legwork to educate themselves on the formulations that are sold at drugstores, at Sephora, at Ulta. So you'll know this if you're my patient. If you have a product that you bring in and I'm not familiar with it, I'll just tell you, it might be amazing. I just personally don't know. I have to do a little bit more research on it because I've never seen it before. I think anytime anybody in any position scoffs at whatever you're using without actually understanding it, that's a red flag. Whenever someone tells you you only need to use medical grade skincare, that's a red flag. But that's not all estheticians. But I do think it comes from just kind of the training that they're given and this kind of myth that's been perpetuated from preceptor to preceptee for many years. Again, not specific to estheticians. It happens in other fields too. But I think that might be why it's so kind of ingrained in the culture of estheticians. Next, is it necessary to exfoliate one time a week if you're acne prone? Absolutely not. It's definitely not necessary. I think it can be beneficial for most people. That being said, if you're using your retinoid every night and you're not having any issues and your acne is clear, there's no reason that you need to add an exfoliant into the mix. Retinoids are not exfoliants, by the way. That's a common myth. But if you're feeling like your routine has something to be desired, you're feeling oily, you're breaking out, especially, and as you start to understand your skin more, you're going to be able to understand the difference between like irritated breakouts versus true breakouts. Like I can tell if I have a pimple or like a little breakout, if it's because my skin barrier is stripped, and in those cases the last thing you need is a chemical exfoliant. So it takes a little bit of nuance in understanding your skin, but I definitely think it can be helpful if you're still having the symptoms that you want to control. I would just recommend that you skip your retinoid that night, and again, you have to kind of play with the frequency a little bit and figure out what works for you. This episode is brought to you by, well, me. Skinthusiast.com is your one-stop shop for all things skin, hair, and beauty. I have countless blog posts to educate you on all the skin concerns and most common skin questions I receive. We also have a complete skincare basics guide on our shop page, as well as the cutest In My Skin era crew necks. If you want to support the show, please head over to skinthusiast.com/shop, and don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Next question, thoughts on 15% azelaic acid for rosacea bumps and redness? Okay, so I've been speaking a lot more about rosacea, but the reason I had held off for so long is because it's an incredibly nuanced disease and topic, and what works for one person with rosacea could be detrimental for someone else. For instance, some rosacea users, or some people with rosacea, thrive on retinoids. I would say it's a lot smaller number, but some of them really thrive. Others cannot even look at a retinoid without it irritating their skin. So I don't like to make these blanket recommendations. That being said, I do have a bunch of new blog posts on rosacea. So if you go to skinthusiast.com, there on the blog section under skincare, there's a lot of new rosacea resources there for you. But specifically for azelaic acid, I find that it can be helpful for the bumps and redness. However, I would say it wouldn't be my first choice for those things. Certainly in pregnancy, it's a great option because it's pregnancy safe, but it's not my first option for actually either of those concerns with rosacea. I really like it for increasing cellular turnover, helping to even skin tone. I don't think it's that amazing at helping with redness. I think the type of redness that we get from rosacea really needs something that's going to help to shrink those blood vessels, and the only thing that works really well for the type of redness that is associated with rosacea is something like brand name Rofade. Next question. I'm allergic to retinol. What should I do? Well, first you need to determine if you really can't use it. I think in most cases people mistake normal reactions from retinoids to being allergic or unable to tolerate it. So definitely make sure you're following kind of my retinoids 101 tip. Again, skinthusiast.com/retinoids. I have a whole guide on how to start retinoids, but if you truly cannot tolerate them, which I would say is like less than 1% of the people I see, by the time we adjust for formulation, how you're using it, what other things you're using in your routine, the frequency, all those things matter. If you truly cannot use a retinol, I would recommend just not using one. Using your other ingredients. There are so many other great ingredients. You can still use your sunscreen, which is so important, your vitamin C, which is so important. You could use a chemical exfoliant a couple times a week. Retinoids in general are the best anti-aging ingredient we have aside from sunscreen, but it's not the end-all be-all. There's other things that can give similar effects. And speaking of retinol, is retinol or retinal better? So we know that retinol, which is retinaldehyde, requires fewer steps to convert to the active form of retinoid that our skin uses, which is retinoic acid, also tretinoin. What retinoic acid is tretinoin. So retinol requires 2 steps to convert to tretinoin, while retinaldehyde only requires 1. Retinaldehyde also has been shown in studies to be a little bit less irritating, which is interesting because it's technically, quote unquote, a little bit stronger depending on the formulation. That being said, I use retinol and I use retinol both. I really don't believe there's like a better, because I think it depends so heavily on your skin type, your concerns, and the formulation you're using. There's hundreds of formulations of retinoids and increasingly more formulations of retinol. So that would be like, you can't compare those classes. You really, like, I could compare formula to formula and tell you which one I think might be better, but they're both going to be absolutely amazing for your skincare routine, so just pick one and go with it. What matters most is consistency, so don't get hung up on choosing which one. Get hung up on how often you're using it and for how long. That's what makes the biggest change in your skin and is most important. Next question, how long does purging last? Purging, I expect to start to slow down in my patients at about 6 to 8 weeks. So if they're still breaking out at the 12-week mark, that's when I start thinking, okay, something else might be happening here. And again, I'm following them every 4 weeks to see how things are going. And generally things are starting to slow down by the second time I see them. So, when I see them at 4 weeks, sometimes they'll be purging. When I see them the next time, if they're not starting to slow down, that's when I really want to a light bulb goes off and I kind of start to think about what else could be happening there. But for sure by 12 weeks, I would say most 6 to 8 weeks is when we see the purging start to slow down. What should I be using on my hands? Basically everything you're using on your face, most importantly, sunscreen. So I put almost everything I use on my face on the backs of my hands, certainly my vitamin C, certainly my retinoid, and absolutely my sunscreen. You do those 3 things. Again, that brings it back to what has been proven time and time again for decades to really help with preventing premature aging, and it's those 3 things. So use that on your hands. That's what I would do. Next one, fluoride causing perma pimples. So pimples that won't go away. So fluoride is an ingredient that can cause irritation around the mouth. Sometimes this is in the form of something called perioral dermatitis, which, that literally just means, by definition, irritation around the mouth. So it's not uncommon to see perioral dermatitis associated with fluoride. So it might not be a true acne pimple. You might be experiencing that complication from the fluoride. What you can do is wash your face after you brush your teeth. And if that doesn't take care of it, you could ask your dentist about potentially switching to a fluoride-free toothpaste. Next one, products and tools to help with nasolabial folds and marionette lines. I'm using everything at home and nothing is really working. This is a really great lesson in understanding the limits of skincare and tools even, right? So I'm a huge fan of microcurrent. I use it every day. I'm a huge fan of LED. I use it every day. I obviously am a big fan of clinically efficacious skincare. I use that every day, but there are some limitations to what can be done without surgery or more invasive procedures like, injectables or lasers and devices. Nasolabial folds here and marionette lines here under the mouth they're a struggle. They're really difficult to treat. And I would say 99% of the time, a topical regimen is just not going to cut it. You might be really lucky and find that it helps, especially if your lines are very superficial, more crinkly lines that you can see at the surface of the skin. Oftentimes we can help with that. But, most of the time you need more invasive options for something like that. If you're just getting started, microneedling can be beneficial. We know that a series of 3 to 4 microneedling sessions can increase collagen by 400%, which is a big number. But also even that, sometimes if the lines are deep, you'll need something more. So this is a really good lesson, as I said, on knowing the limitations of at-home skincare. There's some things it just can't address. Next question. How can you tell if one cleanse is enough with just sunscreen? So someone who's just wearing sunscreen, they're not using makeup, they want to know if they need to double cleanse or if they can single cleanse. So there's 2 ways I tell this. Number 1, I use a tinted sunscreen. So I can immediately tell if I got it all because I use a white towel to dry my face. So if sunscreen comes off on the towel, tinted sunscreen, I wash again. This even happens sometimes when I double cleanse. So sometimes I'll triple cleanse with a gentle cleanser if I need to. Top priority is making sure that you remove that product, especially with the tint. So that's one test. But if you're not using a tinted sunscreen, this is a little weird thing that I'll do sometimes in the shower after I cleanse. If I want to make sure I got everything off, I'll do a little gentle scratch by the side of my nose and see if any product picks up on my finger. And then if there's product there, I know I didn't remove it all and I need to cleanse again. Next question. Vitamin C in the morning, night, or both? Short answer is absolutely in the morning, because that's when you are going to come into contact with pollution and UV, and you really need that antioxidant protection and that free radical scavenging. The long answer is you can absolutely use it morning and nighttime, because there's nothing wrong with that extra dose of antioxidant at night on your skin. But most important is that you're at least using it in the morning. If you want to also use it at night, that's fine too. But just at night, I would say no, you want to prioritize the morning application. Examples for AM and PM pregnancy routines. I have a bunch of content about pregnancy routines in my highlights and also on the blog. So actually, if you go to skinthusiast.com/pregnancy, I can send you all those resources packaged into a really pretty little email. So it's really easily accessible for you. The short answer is you have to stop your retinoid. You have to stop your hydroquinone. The majority of other things in your routine are probably okay. I get more in depth about that in all those blog posts, but it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul. So if you wanted to keep it really simple, you could do the simple routine that I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast. But again, I actually have the AM and PM pregnancy routines that I personally used when I was pregnant on the blog. So skinenthusiast.com/pregnancy, and I'll send those over your way. Favorite retinoid alternative for pregnancy? You guys know I love this question, and my answer is always the same. There is no true retinoid alternative, pregnant or not. There just isn't. Retinoids are in a class all of their own. They're incredible ingredients. There's nothing that will come quite as close to what a retinoid can do. However, there are other ingredients that you can use. Like you can use the rest of your routine, as I mentioned, when you're pregnant. You can incorporate azelaic acid. You can use a gentle chemical exfoliation a couple times a week. All those things are going to be beneficial, but don't get hung up on the fact that you're not using your retinoid for 9 to 10 months. Like it's not the end of the world. You can restart after. Most providers are fine with retinoid use during breastfeeding because the topical absorption is so low. I am fine with it. I use my retinoid while breastfeeding, and I encourage my patients to if they want to, but that's of course a personal choice. My point is, don't get hung up on the fact that you're not using retinoid for such a short period of time. There are other things you can do, like I said, and those AM and PM pregnancy routine posts will really help you. Next, okay, so we have some questions on product recs. All right. Moisturizing face cream that doesn't cause breakouts. Okay, so you guys know where I stand on comedogenicy. It's highly personal. So you don't know if a product is going to break you out unless you try it. Those lists are not super helpful. And Lab Muffin Beauty Science has an incredible podcast or YouTube video on this, so I'll link that below. But basically, even if you're looking to see if ingredients are at the top of the list, that might give you some benefit. But what's most important is the final formulation. So you can have a final formulation that's comedogenic even if it had no ingredients that were potentially pore clogging. And you could have ingredients that are potentially pore clogging in a formulation, and then that final formulation isn't actually comedogenic. And it also really depends on how it reacts with your own skin and your own sebum. So that's my soapbox on comedogenicy. But my favorite face cream at the moment is the Ghostberry Moisturizer by Alpyn Beauty. If you guys saw my content, I tried it for the first time and I was blown away. Like it was one of those things where like my regular moisturizer ran out. I went quickly to my beauty shelf and grabbed one that looked good. I wanted one with ceramide, so I picked that one. And I applied it and like was blown away at how good this moisturizer is. I've been using it ever since I've repurchased it. I use it morning and night. I don't want to say it's my favorite moisturizer of all time, but it might be my favorite moisturizer of all time, basically, is what I'm saying. I also have a code for them. They just gave me one on ShopMy. I saw they posted it. It's just, I think it's Amy20. I'll leave it below. I can't remember the exact code, but I'll leave it below. Next one, what is my favorite makeup primer and setting spray? So for makeup primers, I have two that I really like. I would say most of the time, honestly, my sunscreen acts as my primer. It's rare that I will use an actual primer, but if it's like a night out, I'm leaving after dark and I'm not using sunscreen, or maybe I just want like more staying power, or I want a little added something in my routine, I will do either the Laura Mercier Illuminating. That's my favorite illuminating primer, or my favorite like non-illuminating sparkly primer is the RMS Beauty primer. I really love their primer. They launched it like last year or the year before along with their foundation, and oof, so good. Setting spray, I don't use unless I like really need, like I feel like I've maybe used a setting spray 5 times in my life, like maybe for an outdoor wedding or something. And in that case, I use the Urban Decay All Nighter, which I really love. Sheet mask recommendations. So up until literally last week, I would have told you I have none because I don't use sheet masks, but I fell into this whole craze of these collagen sheet masks, these Korean sheet masks that are all the rage right now. Susan Yara posted about one that she really liked, and she said she liked it over the other ones. And I'm like, okay, let me try it. Oof, it's nice. It's really nice. I did wear it all night. I did a little post about it, but I was able to wear it all night, no issues. I didn't pull it off in the middle of the night. And I definitely had like glowy skin in the morning, but not dewy skin, which could be good or bad, kind of depending on what you're looking for. But what I was most impressed with is that even later that night, I was like putting on my skincare and I could feel how much smoother my skin was. And that was like over 12 hours after removing it. So that's what really impressed me. They're also fun to use. They're like really thick and you can see kind of like the moisture go into your skin. It's cool. But the real benefits of these, I know I'm going to get pushback because I did online about collagen being too large of a molecule to penetrate the skin. So collagen, I feel in this case, is really just used for the marketing because people see the word collagen and they know what collagen is and how beneficial it is for their skin. So they equate collagen in their skincare with collagen in their skin, and applying collagen topically will not increase the collagen production of your skin. However, it is a really nice humectant. The other ingredients in the mask, there's peptides and other humectants, so you're just like really getting that incredible hydration, but also the occlusive effect of the mask as well. So that's why I think they're super beneficial. At least these ones specifically have been for me. Next question, thoughts on buying skincare from Marshalls? I wouldn't recommend it only because we've seen in the past that there could be expired or counterfeit products. So I don't think it's worth it. I think if budget is a concern, just find a clinically efficacious formula at your budget, and there are plenty of them, rather than like trying to get a higher end product at a lower price point that could potentially be counterfeit. This isn't a question. Dr. Dennis Gross face wash changed my life. This is such a good face wash. It's like their alpha beta face wash. There's glycolic acid and salicylic acid. It's a nice gel formulation. It's so good for oily skin types, oily acne-prone skin. Fave Universal Cleanser. This kind of changes all the time, but currently the one I just emptied and I'm actually going to repurchase because I loved it so much is the new cleanser from Skinfix. It's like their one with Ectoin in it. It's fantastic. So fabulous. Products for low porosity hair. So if you have low porosity hair, you probably have damaged hair, which isn't hard to do. Really just living damages our hair, but the level is going to change, based on what things you do to your hair. Heat, chemical services, coloring, brushing, the way you brush, the way you sleep with it, all those things are going to affect the level of damage. So my tips are to address the damage. So things like peptide treatments, bond builders, conditioning and moisturizing agents for the hair, being super careful when you comb it and detangle it, sleeping on silk if you can to reduce breakage. There's so many tips for this type of hair concern. I actually have an entire hair guide. If you go to skinthusiast.com/hair care, I think that's what it is. If not, I'll leave it below. And it's like a whole series that comes to your email over a series of 4 days that tells you how to completely up-level your hair routine and really start addressing your hair concerns. Couple last questions about dermatology. Waiting 5 months for a consult with a dermatologist, is that normal? In some places, yes, especially obviously general dermatology. You can see if there's other dermatologists on your insurance, but yeah, it is unfortunate that there are wait times like this. It is not like that at my clinic, but we don't take insurance. We're a cash pay clinic, so we have the luxury of not having to deal with insurance. So yeah, it can be tough. I'm so sorry. I would recommend seeing if there's somewhere else that you can call that takes your insurance and just trying to call it around as many places as possible. Next one, clinic LED treatment making freckles darker. Is that normal? So LED should not be making your freckles darker. I'm assuming this is blue light that you're getting, but I would stop it, especially if you're concerned with the hyperpigmentation. There are other things that you can do to help with your acne and acne causing bacteria. I would stop the LED if your freckles are getting darker. What to invest in if I don't want to do Botox for lines? So if you don't want to do Botox, they're asking specifically about like in clinic things that they can do. I would definitely do microneedling, because as I mentioned earlier, we can get that 400% increase in collagen production. That's super beneficial. I do recommend doing it with PRP because the data suggests it is superior when coupled with PRP or PRFM. I would definitely add that onto your microneedling treatment. I feel like that's really where I would put my money when it comes to in-office procedures if you don't want to do Botox. Botox is still the first line treatment for wrinkles caused by muscle movement. So most commonly the wrinkles between the eyebrows, on the forehead, around the eyes, the vertical lip lines that go above your lip, those are most effectively treated with Botox. But as I mentioned, things like nasolabial folds, marionette lines, those are generally not due to Botoxable muscles always, depending on what's going on there. So I really like microneedling. I think it's a fantastic option. I think it's great for somebody who's dipping their toes in the aesthetic world. It's really just helpful for that collagen production. It's something that I'm definitely going to start doing more often on my face and my neck. All right, very last question. Product for skin laxity after weight loss if surgery is not an option. Sadly, I don't think there is going to be a product that is going to really help. That's my honest truth. I would hate to see you spend hundreds of dollars on neck creams, especially because it sounds like when you say after weight loss, I think of like a more significant skin laxity, and products just aren't going to touch that, unfortunately. You can use a retinoid. There's no harm there. It's going to help with the skin texture. It might help a little bit with collagen production. I don't know that it's going to be anything that you're going to notice if the skin laxity is very severe, but ultimately surgery is by far the best option. There's also procedures or devices like All Therapy, which uses focused ultrasound heat to increase collagen production. I would say that the effects are modest if the skin laxity is anything more than like mild. So it's really best to catch at that mild stage. But if you're someone who's like, I'm absolutely not doing surgery, you could do 1, 2, or even 3 of those All Therapy spread out. I want to caution when I say that because this isn't a device you want to do in a series regularly. Like most patients are kind of a one and done thing because you can have, the adverse events, especially if it's not done in the proper hands. But I have had patients who are like, I'm not going to do surgery, and we'll do a series of those. And it does give some modest improvement, but it's not going to be a surgery result. Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. That was like a lot of questions. I feel like I was talking straight for a really long time. It felt longer than it was, but I'm glad that I was able to get to some of the questions that I wasn't able to get to in the Q&A last week. So thank you so much for listening. If you have a second to rate and review the show, I have been grabbing some reviews that I like and sending some product boxes over to those people just as a thank you. So it really just helps the show grow, get into the hands of the right people so that the people who really want this information can get it. So either leave us a review, a rating or review, or if you want to share this episode or any episode that's been your favorite to your stories, I'll also be picking a couple people to send over a little thank you as well for sharing to their stories and tagging me. So as always, thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next week, skin enthusiasts.